How much should you pay for rent? Well, how much you pay for rent determines whether you're gonna have something left each time you get paid monthly. And if you're young and you're, working and you're not making that much, I always recommend you go for the cheapest apartment you can find. I know some people may be like, hey, Mr. Chime, you can only find cheap apartments in the ghetto. No, not necessarily. There are some cities in the United States that are still affordable. You just have to look around, right? And for instance, if you're someone that is making $3,000, I'm gonna keep the percentage of your rent to be about 31%, no more than 31% of your paycheck. So that way, once you're done with the rent and you have some money, you can still take other necessary expenses that you have, and then put something aside for a rainy day. Now, if you're making less than $40,000, make sure that your rent does not exceed 50% of your paycheck. Sometimes it can get up to 50%. Why? Because you're not making them much. So obviously, if the rental prices in your city is really high, there's a high chance that's going to eat deeply to your paycheck. Now, what other advice do I have to give you as a young working class adult that is trying to get a place of your own? Well, if you're single and you don't have a child, I would say to go for, you don't even need a two-bedroom or one-bedroom. You just need a studio. Start out with a studio. And then maybe after a year or two, once you have figured out a way to, bump your wage rate or the amount that you make monthly, then you can qualify into a one-bedroom apartment. Now, if you could find a one-bedroom apartment that is gonna stay less than 50% of your paycheck, then go for that. But the point is, when you're starting out, right, you wanna keep your costs low. So that way you're squaring some money away, just in case if something happens to you, you're not gonna be homeless, or you're not gonna be running around looking for someone to help, because there's not gonna be anybody out there to help you. Hence, the importance of putting money aside after you get paid, because it's very, very important. And you can only do that when your rent, which is one of the biggest monthly expenses that we make, is actually affordable. Yeah. Now, why is it very important to always consider this? Well, for me personally, I think it's very, very important because rent is one of the biggest expenses we make in a month as young working class adults. There's nothing else bigger than it. Your food expenses is always going to be less than your rent. Your car note is always going to be less than your rent. Your car insurance is going to be less than your rent. I don't think there's any expense that you're doing as a young working class adult at this starting stage in your life that is going to be bigger than your rent. Rent is going to be the biggest thing right now, especially if you're making less than $40,000. So obviously you have to figure out a way to make sure that it doesn't eat deeply into your paycheck. So you have something, to squirrel away, to save. And you only do that by starting out in a studio apartment, which is very, very cheap. Or you could just get a one-bedroom apartment that still falls less than 50% of your paycheck if you're making $40,000 or less. Now, what if you're making $3,000 a month? Well, if you're making $3,000 a month, for instance, what I want you to do is I want you to keep the rent prices under that 1%. And what is that 1% of the $3,000 that you make per month? That's $950. Try to see if you could find an apartment in your city that is $950, so that after you're done paying the $950 per month, you still have some money left to take care of your car note, water bill, electric bill, and have enough to also to save even after your food expense. Yeah. Someone may be asking, hey, Mr. Chime, where on earth are you gonna find a $950 apartment? Well, let me tell you something. Right now, I'm actually paying $927 as rent. My lease is about to expire, and my apartment complex is coming back telling me that if I renew on time, I'm gonna end up paying $887. Yep, for a whole 1 year. And this is a one-bedroom apartment with a kitchen, with a living room, closet, and everything I need is just there. Can you believe that? In Texas. So in states like Texas, where there is no state tax on your income and that is affordable, you are going to be able to find an apartment whose price is $950 if you're making $3,000. You can even find one that is $1,000. You say if you're paying $1,000 for rent on a $3,000 monthly income, you still have $2,000 left. And out of that $2,000, $1,000 could take care of your car insurance, your car note, and you could keep the rest for a rainy day, or just in case if you have a financial emergency, you will not go into a financial crisis. And that goes with everything else that you are doing in your life. Like the car you drive right now at this stage should be a used, cheap car. There's no reason why you're making $3,000 and you're driving a Mercedes. You have no business driving a Jeep. You have no business driving a luxurious car when you are on a $3,000 monthly income. Why am I telling you this? I know you may be like, well, this is America. I can just get credit and drive whatever I want. Yes, but your car note is going to be so much that you're going to be crapping out stones because you have this anxiety of meeting up every month. So as young working class adults that we are, how much should you pay for rent? Well, I want you to look at your salary right now. If you're making less than $40,000 a year, try to make sure that your the percentage of the paycheck that is going into rent is going to be less than 50%. You understand? If you are making 41,000 to 50,000, keep it less than 36%. Your rent should not be more than 36% of this annual salary that I just mentioned, 41,000 to 50,000. If you're making $51,000 to $60,000 a year, keep your rent under 30%. Yes, if you're able to do that, you're gonna have enough money to squirrel away just in case you have a financial crisis coming up. Because one thing with life, once you start living on your own, and I'm telling you now, is life is gonna hit you. Understand? It's gonna be one problem after another. Now, yours may not be as severe as other people that are struggling, other young working class adults that are struggling out there, but life will hit you every now and then. And how you're able to prepare yourself will determine whether you are going to handle your adult challenges, like an adult, or you're just gonna pack your things and move back into your parents' house. Which, if you listen to the first video that I put out, I said, once you've moved out of your parents' house, right, there's no going back. The only time we're gonna go back there is when we go to visit them, right? Because remember, moving out of your parents' house is the financial steps towards financial independence. It's you asserting your freedom. It's you saying, hey, look at me, I'm a grown baby. And I'm gonna go out there in the world and stake my own claim, right? That's what you're telling the world. When you tell your parents and you say, hey, listen, I'm about to leave now. I'm gonna go find a place of my own. I have a job now. I can take care of my expenses. I can take care of my car note. I can take care of my car insurance. Mom, Dad, I don't need you anymore to pay for things for me. Get off my back. That's you saying, hey, you're ready for financial independence journey, right? And once you move out of that house, personally, what I usually encourage my audience, I say, it's go, go, go from there on. No matter the kind of life challenges that you hit, you will never try to make it a point. If you want to get a big blackboard and post it there and then write, I will never ever move back in with mom and dad. And that's the goal. Because why? You're now an adult that has asserted his or her freedom. And your goal is to maintain that freedom as much as you can as you gradually age through time, right? And how do you do this? You do this by putting yourself in a position of financial strength, a high financial strength. What do I mean? Like, if something is to happen to you, like you suddenly lose your job, you're not going to be homeless. You're not going to be saying, okay, let's move back to mom and dad's house. No, because you have some savings that you have squirreled away because you're paying it low rent, and rent is not a big part of your monthly income. You can hold off on your life challenges. You could just keep pushing them back until you're able to get another job. Hence why I say that rent shouldn't be a huge percentage of your paycheck, because if it becomes a huge percentage of your paycheck, your in serious trouble. Why are you in serious trouble? Well, you're in serious trouble because if something is to happen to you that requires money to solve, you're not going to be able to do it. And when you look up and down and you look around and your fellow adults are not there to help you because they have their own issues going on, you won't have any choice but to move back with your parents. And that's not the goal that I want my listeners or my readers to do. If you move out, you stay out. The only time you're coming back is when you're coming to share good news, when you're coming to, spend time with your parents and see how they're doing. But you're never gonna move back in, right? So as we are out there trying to assert our financial freedom or trying to carve a piece of the American pie, I want us to always make sure that rent is not a huge percentage of our paycheck, right? Especially if we're still within the working class range and we're not making much monthly. We're making sure that our rent, if we're making less than $48,000, is less than 50% of what we make, right? If we are making $41,000 to $50,000, it should be less than 36% of our paycheck. If we are making $51,000 to $60,000, then our rent should be less than 30% of that amount monthly, right? And if we're doing this, we're gonna have enough money to solve other problems and enough to put aside for a rainy day. And that's all matters, because as for rainy days, there are gonna be many rainy days coming. And the best way of making sure that you don't get drenched by the storms of life is to have enough money squirrel away to solve your own problems without having to rely on people who may or may not disappoint you. And that's all I've got to say. Well, I remain yours truly, Mr. Chime from weeklybego.com. You have yourself a wonderful week.